everyone, I'm Amber. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be reviewing Inside Out 2. And let me preface this video by saying that I did like the movie. I did really like it. Did I love it? No. I loved the first one. I did, because I think it was more simplistic in saying, like, hey, you know, you're barely starting out. These are your, like, 5 core emotions and everything. I think the brain is such a complicated thing that when you try to explain more of what is going on in here, it gets very complex. And I think this movie tried to do that by explaining kind of what beliefs are and how when you get older you have more emotions. But I think that is not really true. I don't think you just hit puberty and then get all these new emotions. Of course, they get amplified, and then I think you do get newer ones as time goes on. But I think that as a human being, we're equipped with all these different emotions, and some of them present themselves at different times and different ages. And I do think that a child could have experienced like envy at, you know, a younger age. And I think even Riley exhibited some of it back when she was, you know, being portrayed in the first movie, with her wanting to go back home and everything, and wanting that life back. So I think that if we were going to, like, simplify it and having those core emotions, having there's 5 of them, right? Joy, anger, sadness. I think there's 5 or 6. I think it was very simple, very like, okay, you know, like, we are not getting into the nitty-gritty of trying to explain what is going on in the brain, because then it's a lot of different things and much more in-depth emotions, and some emotions that mean different things and depending on the situation, and that blend together and everything. And so I see what this movie was trying to accomplish, and I think having anxiety as the forefront of the problem in the movie was a good idea, but I think it's just so much more complex. And nowadays, if we're in an age and we're trying to explain, you know, emotions to children, I think it's a good foundation movie, but I think it's also kind of confusing, because it's not so simple. So that's that. So in this movie, Riley's a teenager. She's 13 years old, and she wakes up one day, and her world is turning upside down. She suddenly is going through puberty, which I think puberty is just it's a gradual process. You don't just wake up one day and it's like everything hits. And so the way they portrayed it, I think, like, she woke up and suddenly it was just like all these hardcore emotions and feelings, like, that is not normal. I think it's a very progressive sort of way of starting to feel certain ways, you know, the body changing, whatnot. The fact that, like, you know, sadness and, like, disgust were just kind of, like, barely tapping the, what is it called? The thing where, like, they take, charge of the emotions and whatever, and then she feels them. Basically, I don't even know how that works. How do they know it's like she needs to feel this emotion? Dun. I don't know. It's funny that I think they did very well, because it is just like the slightest little thing that can provoke someone. That I think was bravo. And then all these new emotions come in, and we have anxiety, who wants to control everything, which, yeah, like, but I think that you develop, like, again, anxiety as time goes on, and not just wake up one day with it. I mean, in some cases, maybe, but this is a 13-year-old girl who has done, everything right and has had such a wonderful life because these emotions. And that's not, like, that doesn't happen in real life, She has made these right decisions all along because these emotions are like getting rid of like the bad decisions are the ones that keep her up at night and she doesn't want to think about. And anxiety is keeping those, and that is much more realistic. But the fact that anxiety took charge over all these emotions, and even when the emotions, like the whole point of the first one is the emotions blend, one feeling kind of leads to another. You can feel multiple things in one day or in 1 second. The fact that all these new core emotion balls, where I'm losing words right now, what they're called, but we're all orange. Like, I'm surprised that none of them were like, hey, can we, like, do more? Like, and I was like, why aren't their colors showing up when they do stuff? Also, she talks about, like, anxiety talks about how, like, they have been prepping for this for a very long time. Like, where were they? And how were they prepping and how did she become in charge? Because she does have a very dominant presence. But she's also, like, I don't know. I just feel like someone could overpower her really easily if they wanted to. And that without embarrassment, kind of like putting Joy and all of the other ones into the thing that puts them to the other side of the mind, she would kind of fail, because they would always be intruding and everything. And so I think that without her posse, she, wouldn't be so much of a force. But I do think that she's very set in her beliefs and a very strong individual, but I just don't think she would have accomplished all this if not for them. And then embarrassment kind of changes his point of view very quickly. I think he realizes things are going wrong very quickly. And that's kind of why he lets Sadness, do what she needs to do when she gets back up there. But I don't know. I think he changes his mind quite quickly. And he doesn't talk a lot. So I don't know. I think he didn't start realizing things, at least in my perspective, until later, where he was like, oh. And I'm just like, but you already let Sadness, like, hang out in the back and, do the thing. They introduced, like, Ennui, who had the cell phone and everything. I understand that there's so many different new terms for emotions nowadays, more fancier. They described them, I'm not sure, as, like, boredom, which that didn't make sense to me because it seemed like more sarcasm, when they took over. I'm going to say they because I was not sure what gender they were. I'm assuming female, but I'm not also assuming. But I looked it up, and I think this is also kind of where it got confusing because I was just like, could you explain more what you are? And then the fact that they spoke French, was in a French accent, made it very hard to decipher what they were saying. It says a feeling of weariness and dissatisfaction. That's highlighted, and then it says boredom. So I think if they just said dissatisfaction, I would have been like, oh, and that kind of leads into sarcasm and stuff like that. And there were, like, actual sarcasms, like holes in the mind that developed because Ennui was taking charge. So that I think would have made sense. Envy, I loved Envy. Envy was adorable. Even though she annoyed me, I thought she was very cute. I think that it was very hard, like I mentioned earlier, to decipher when certain emotions could be utilized. I think it was much more self-explanatory in the first one. And this one, it felt more like they were maneuvering Riley's body parts to do things when she was playing hockey instead of they were controlling her emotions at certain times, because when she was playing hockey they were like moving things around and stuff. I think that the belief system, if not for that, well, I think it also made it more complicated, like I said before, too. But I think if not for that, I think it would have been more confusing. As to... Because Riley ends up, like, kind of taking control on her own now with, like, things that are her beliefs. She kind of, like, controls it. Like, you don't need an emotion to tell her what to do or make her do something. She just does it. She takes the reins, which happens not all the time with the belief system either. It, like, anxiety kind of took over at one point. And then at the same time, like... there was just times where she just took over. And I think it was very hard to like see how and what the emotions do and when. And I think that's when it just became very complex and didn't make sense also. But basically, if she believes something, you can't really counteract it. That was the whole point. But then I think if you push enough, and especially if it was anxiety, like, after a while, after we conquered anxiety, that whole panic attack, I don't think anxiety just goes away. But I kind of didn't really see the point of her being there. Like, what was her role other than just saying, well, what about this? What about this? This could happen. This could happen. Does Riley just have a moment of, like, anxiety and then it goes away? Like, other than that, like... I'm trying to think as a person with anxiety, like, what else could it do? Like, I don't know if this makes any sense. Because it just gives you anxiety. And then they put her in a chair, and they're like, relax. And then they, gave her tea, and the chair, you know, was one of those vibration chairs, and anxiety was good. But I didn't know at that point what the purpose of her was other than just Riley kind of has anxiety every once in a while. And I think that is kind of the point. But it's also like, oh, okay. Going back to not knowing Anwi's, like, pronouns and gender, I think that a lot of the new emotions, you couldn't really specify their gender now that I'm thinking about it. I think they were all, like, you know, new and, like, current and, you know, trying to show representation somehow through Pixar. But I think it was also kind of confusing. But it's okay. I think that once anxiety took a step back, then it let the other new emotions shine more. And obviously these are not all good emotions. Anger is not a good emotion. I loved how we saw a different perspective of anger. Like, him outside of, like, the main, like, you know, center area, he's a good guy. He's pretty chill. I think it's kind of when he has to be activated, you know? But I think it also kind of lends into, like, not all these emotions are creating one thing. Anger is not just anger. And I think, like, disgust, like, they portray her as a very, you know, kind of beautiful kind of character. And I think that there's weirdly a beautiful side to her. And you know, Fear is a little quirky, and, like, I love that he's a little nerdy, and that's kind of, like, the same thing, like, if a person, you know, embodies fear and is nerdy. So, yeah, I love Joy and Sadness's interactions with each other, especially after the first one. She is very... what's the word? It's not sarcastic. She's just kind of like, I love you, but I want to shake you sometimes. And that one moment, and Sadness is just like, yeah. But you're just like, huh? But that's their I love how their relationship has blossomed. I love that moment when Riley is like calling to Joy, and Sadness is like, Riley wants you, she needs you, she wants to experience joy at this point. And I think that was so beautiful. After her panic attack, she wanted to experience joy, happiness. And it's not so easy as you call that, and it just kind of happens. But I think that was the most logical and simplest and also realistic thing I saw in the whole movie when it came to the emotions and how one experiences them. Obviously, there's not really, I guess not, like little emotions in your head that like push buttons and make you feel things, who knows? The mind is a complicated place, but I think what makes these movies so beautiful is that you're trying to educate individuals and give names to these feelings, and you relate to it, and you're like, oh my goodness, I think that even when we relate to a certain emotion because we feel that so much, it brings these movies, like, it gives them such a powerful message. They portray such a powerful message, and you have such a powerful response to it. And so, yeah, but that scene, loved it. I think that, because, like, when Anxiety, obviously, she's putting the new core beliefs that are they're full orange, or anxiety, into Riley's core belief system. That the way they portray it is like it's a giant lake that they drop the little balls in, and then it kind of makes Riley become, more. It helps her grow and define herself. And Anxiety wants to create this new Riley based on anxiety, because she's like, I'm prepping her for the future, and that's why she's like making her betray her friends, and then try to be a better hockey player for high school, and then make friends with the cool girl who's going to be like the captain and the new friends in the hockey team, because she's not going to have her best friends anymore, even though she can kind of see them on the weekends. They're just going to different high schools. And you're seeing that there's this broken kind of new Riley, and then at the end she's like, I'm not good enough, and Anxiety is just like, that's weird, I was making it so you could be good enough, but the ultimate result of all that Anxiety was creating was this anxious, not good enough Riley that she's feeling all this now. And I think Anxiety is the one emotion that we see that she causes something, or she makes something happen, and she thinks that she has these intentions that she's making this happen, and then it ultimately results in something completely different. And that's what the complexity of these new emotions kind of is. And then when the other emotions, like, because they're on the other side trying to get back to headquarters and also trying to get Riley's core belief system back in place, because Anxiety threw that out, like, and was trying to create a new one. When they bring back all, because they end up in the ball pit of, like, all the emotions and memories that they threw out, when they come back and all those different memories, those ones that are kind of like bittersweet, that may cause some anxiety, or like the ones that you think about late at night and stuff, and are cringy and whatever, they in turn needed to be down there, and you couldn't just get rid of it and make this perfect Riley, because she's more complicated than that, and all these new emotions kind of like combined into one and made her a more complex individual, because individuals are more complex, and I think that it did very well as well, because like I said, it's not one dimensional. It's not, they do something and then it ends up perfectly. It's like, it's a lot more complicated. Um, and I think that in times this movie was very confusing in that. And then ultimately in the end, like, the goal and the whole, like, idea of that was established, but I don't know how well it got across because of all the ups and downs and, like, the logistics, I guess you could say, of it, were explained when it's not so clear, even in the movie, what is exactly going on until that moment where you're like, oh, I'm all these different things. And it's like, yes, but didn't we come to that conclusion in the first one too? But yeah, I think this one just, it hit harder because, again, anxiety and stuff, and that it made it more current and more relatable, and that is understood, and I liked it. But yeah, I also loved that, Joy realized that the old core Riley, the perfect core belief Riley, was not her anymore, and it couldn't be her. She, again, was an individual with so many different things, that made her up. And so when she broke that, and everybody was like, no. I love that it was Joy that realized that. I think Joy is really, like, the one who should be in charge there, but obviously isn't, for different reasons. They all take the reins, and that's the whole point of the movie. But I think she's the one that realizes more things. And yeah, I loved the funny moments in here where we got Sadness, trying to hide in her bedroom and being all sneaky, and obviously she's on her bed and she's glowing underneath the blanket. We ended up in the deep, dark secret vaults. The secret vaults, the secrets that Riley keeps, and she has, like, all, like, the secret things that she likes or doesn't want to reveal to the world. We had Nostalgia come out, and I resonated with her so much. She just came out of nowhere. And I think that, like, her coming out of nowhere and, like, being so random, I think that's so, like, true to how nostalgia works too, because you can experience nostalgia anytime in life. I loved how the deep dark secret was something so simple and, like, also relatable. He just also had an accent, and it was hard to decipher what he was saying. I had to turn and ask my brother, I'm like, what did he just say? And then I was like, oh. It was kind of funny waiting for the end of a Disney movie, like a Marvel movie, because there was, like, a scene at the end. I don't see too many Disney movies doing that. So that was really fun. Before going, I tried not to be spoiled, but I did see some TikToks that kind of escaped that. And they were talking about how Riley might be queer. She might be. I don't know. She was really, like, kind of into that one girl. So I don't know. I also, all these girls had, like, black hair, and Riley was the only one that was blonde, and then she added the, like, the red stripe in her hair. So I was just like, did they all dye their hair brown before they, like, what is this? Is this some kind of hockey cult? I don't know. But yeah, I also, like, oh my goodness, when she went into, there's, like, this poof going on here. When she went into the coach's office to look at, and we all knew this was gonna come. Basically the notebook that said if she was ready or what she thought of her for next season to play hockey in the hockey team. And then she reads not ready yet. And I was just like, oh my god. Like, it was such a tense scene. And then I'm pretty sure she got in at the end. What changed the coach's mind? I don't know. Like, even like panning out to the coach at one scene and like her being like, huh, like, you know, raising an eyebrow, like at something Riley does good and maybe to change her mind. I don't know. It just happened and I think she got on the team. So, yes, there were some good moments in this movie, and there were some really well done things that I really loved. And obviously it's Inside Out. Like, it's a good kids movie, you know. I liked it. I just think that there were some things where I'm like, we could have, but then we couldn't have because it's very complex. Okay, I guess you did the best with what you could, but we're making it confusing. Okay, we did. Okay, that's how I felt. All right, mission accomplished, I guess. Good job. But yeah, overall I enjoyed it. Do I like it as much as the first? Like I said, no. But it's interesting to see, you know, part two. I don't know if there's gonna be a part three. Obviously, you know, we kind of ended the first one with like the puberty button, like right there, and then the second one it goes off, and then all this stuff ends up happening. You know, I love that they chucked it like across the way because they just didn't want to hear, it, and then that's when everything starts happening. But yeah, that's my review on the movie. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you all soon. Bye!